Doing business in the USA and how to do it from the Miami Business Hub. Welcome to this webinar organized by Italian magazine Economy and MTW Group, Foreign Market Entry Advisors. My name is Riccardo Venturi. I am a foreign editor at Economy magazine. What we are addressing today is a topical issue more than ever, also in light of the record numbers recorded by Italian exports in the first 9 months of the year. 377 billion euros, about $437 billion. We face this topic with the presence of 4 real experts that I am going to introduce to you. Antonio Acunzo, Chief Executive Officer, MTW Group, Foreign Market Entry Advisors.
Hi, everyone.
Stanley Rigaud, Vice President, International Economic Development, MiamiDade Beacon Council. We have Fiorella Belardi, Senior Manager, International Tax, Marcum Accountants Advisors.
Good morning.
And Basil Khalil, Vice President, Operations, FedEx Federal Express.
Good morning and good afternoon.
I give the word to the Editor-in-Chief of Economy, Sergio Luciano, for a greeting and a brief introduction. The word to you, Sergio.
Thank you, Riccardo. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for taking part in this webinar organized by Economy Group with the crucial partnership of MTW Group, MTW. The relationship between the United States and Italy has always been very strong. Millions of Italian immigrants have made their fortunes in the United States, and Italian names resonate today in every city and in many leading roles in U.S.A. society. The United States is an essential trading partner for Italy. Yet, things could and should be much better in the economic relations between our two countries. The U.S. could find more interesting investment opportunities in Italy if only Italians could make themselves better known. And Italian entrepreneurs could in turn do more business in the States if only they knew the market better and knew how to deal with it in the right way. This is the purpose of today's initiative, and it is our intention of MTW Group and Economy to ensure that, with the consent of the participants, it will be the first of a series. So, renewing all our thanks to the panelists, to Antonio Acunzo and his team at MTW Group, and to all of you who are connected, I leave the floor to my colleague Riccardo Venturi, Foreign Editor of Economy, who will conduct the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergio. So let me clarify what is our aim for this webinar. Today we want to make a sort of a snapshot of the US market on how to approach it effectively, highlighting a practical and pragmatic roadmap using the business language of a private company that caters to SMEs and therefore knows the value of time to market and what tools are really needed for a company to enter, develop, grow, and expand in the competitive and selective US market. And why via Miami? So let's get into the heart of the webinar, giving the floor to Antonio Acunzo, Chief Executive Officer, MTW Group, Foreign Market Entry Advisors, who I asked to tell us about business in the US for SMEs made in Italy, market entry strategy, the importance of market intelligence and marketing as a driver of development. The word to you, Antonio.
Thank you, Riccardo. Okay, so first of all, before starting, I would like to say thank you to Basil, to Fiorella, and to Stanley for joining this panel. There's one simple reason. When I thought about this webinar, I conceived it as a kind of a snapshot, a roadmap to understand why the US market and how to better approach. And I thought of the three of them because we can give a fantastic perspective from four business growth drivers, which is from my side, strategy and marketing, from Stanley's side, why Miami, of course, and then two important, very important aspects, the tax systems, which Fiorella will highlight, and on top of everything, because otherwise we couldn't have any Italian product on this part of the ocean, and the same things on the other side from here to Italy, the logistics and how to ship all these stuff, and mostly the supply chain issue that is particularly of interest in these last few weeks, and Basil will be in charge for that. So having said so, well, my name is Antonio Acunzo. I'm Italian by origin, the name says so. I'm born and raised in Bergamo, and then I moved to the US in 2003, and in New York, and in Florida since 2005. I'm co-founder and CEO of MTW Group, which has been founded in Miami in 2005 and is based in Aventura since then, in beautiful sunny Florida, or better, beautiful sunny South Florida. MTW Group is an international business advisory. We provide Italian SMEs, small business enterprises, which are the piccole e medie imprese italiane, said it in Italian, and mid-market companies. We design the most effective market entry strategy for those companies that eye the US market for their business and expansion growth in the form of joint ventures, mergers and acquisition, foreign direct investment for those who are interested in the localizing manufacturing or distribution capabilities, and of course, direct export. Why MTW? MTW is the acronym that stands for Marketing That Works. In Italian, il marketing che funziona. And there's a specific reason for this name, in the sense that, especially in this country, in the American business culture, marketing is the #1 driver for business growth of any kind. If we just consider that the average small, medium enterprise invest from 5 to 12% every year of the annual revenues in marketing activities. So if we make an example, a small company is generating $5 million in revenues, may easily consider to invest from $250,000 to $600,000 per year as marketing budgets to implement and execute marketing activities. And this may sound particularly strange for the Italian market, where marketing is considered more of a cost rather than an investment. And I actually used intentionally the verb invest and not cost, because we come from a country, Italy, where we are accustomed to say that made in Italy creates excellence. And indeed, there is real and evident excellence in most of the Italian products and in made in Italy. This is more particularly keen for, I'm going to say, the more recognized major companies whose brands are mostly widely known, from fashion, food, automotive, which are probably the three most important aspects of the made in Italy, which is famous particularly for the luxury aspect. But small companies, small medium companies that and they have absolutely the capability to create excellence, because they have family traditions in generations, they have entry craftsmanship, they have the ability to create something unique, but in lack of brand awareness, because your product or brand is not known or popular in this market, and in lack of communicating this brand and this product, it becomes a little bit challenging to consider exporting per se in this market, for one simple reason. You may be top of the line in your domestic market. You may have a familiarity with your comfort zone in doing business because you have been dealing with geographically closer markets, but without communicating the importance, the element that make your product stand out in terms of diversity, in terms of differentiations, in terms of uniqueness, in terms of unique selling proposition. The reason why I have to consider your product is it cannot rely simply on the fact of this is a made in Italy product. Made in Italy is a fantastic leverage, but it's not sufficient if it's not sustained by other leverages. And I say so because we are at a stage in a global economy where a lot of markets have created excellencies. We have outstanding made in France product, made in Malaysia products, of course, made in the US. We are here in the US. So we have to create and communicate, and communication is at the base of investing in marketing activity to promote a product. We have to communicate this differentiation. That's why we called ourselves marketing that works, marketing che funziona, because on top of designing the most effective market entry strategy based on company, product, and business goals of the company that wants that is actually eyeing and targeting the US market, we have to consider how to highlight those elements of differentiation, and this differentiation comes in applying a few marketing aspects that we will see later on. So, what is it that we have to consider for the US market? Well, US is the largest global economy worldwide. There is no economy like this country. It's the largest consumer market globally. It's the #1 luxury market globally, absolutely, and is the #1 destination market for Italian product outside the European Union. After France and Germany comes the United States. We have something in the range of 31 billion euros generated alone this year from January to August in exports from the US, from Italy to the US. The data is only available until August. Last year was 41 billion. So basically on track to get well over these 41 2020 targets. Of course, the COVID pandemic has resulted in slowing doing business globally worldwide. On top of this, we had supply chain issues. On top of this, we have disruptions also in container shipping globally, and this also inflected also on the cost of exports, because basically the cost of shipping from a container from Italy to US has managed to grow 5 to 7 folds year on year, from last year to this one, for instance. And that, of course, impact the final retail price on consumer. But we have a fantastic opportunity on this other side, because there's a huge consumer spending in this market, and there's a strong appetite for whatever comes from Il Bel Paese, Italy, for instance. Let's say something just to avoid any kind of misunderstanding. This is a market where there is no need to get new products. Let me better explain this. In the US, you can find everything, like in most Western economies. But there's a crucial appetite and strong demand for something that can create a difference, or can add a value, or can give some kind of differentiation of competitive advantage. Let's see a couple of figures just to understand the presence of Italy here in the US. There are over 1,000 Italian companies that are actually incorporated their own US entity, whether a LLC or a corporation, but they are present physically with a legal entity in the United States. 80 Italian companies have relocated manufacturing capabilities over here. And over 3,300 Italian companies have a sort of shareholding partnership with American companies. Out of these, just to give a scenario that also reflects the base of the traditional base of manufacturing in Italy, 32% of the companies work in the precision mechanics, 14% in the furniture and design furniture, 11% in fashion, and 9% of the Italian companies in this market are related to food. Food, by the way, just to give just as a quick snapshot, is the only industry out of Made in Italy that didn't suffer any kind of collapse or decrease during the COVID pandemic, but was the one that actually experienced and generated over 20% performance respect to the previous year. Why the US? Well, I said before, of course, it's the largest global market, but it's also the number 6 best country in the world to do business, according to the rating by the World Bank, followed by New Zealand, Singapore, Denmark. Italy, unfortunately, is only number 58 in this list. And it's also number 10 in the best competitiveness list of 2020, before the usual Singapore, Denmark, Switzerland, UK, Hong Kong, and Italy in this category ranks only 44. It's also a AAA credit rating from Moody's and Fitch and a AA+ rating from Standard & Poor. Other reasons to do business here in the US? One, most important, business friendly. Business friendly because, first of all, you are allowed to have a 100% foreign ownership and corporate shareholding here is allowed. Second, business friendly aspect, which is amazingly fantastic, it's a bureaucracy-free country. Here it's very easy. You don't spend the bureaucracy, particularly famous in Italy. You don't wait months to get a license. You can open the company today and get everything fixed from a legal perspective and fiscal perspective within 24 hours maximum. On top of this, an effective legal system that protects any kind of issues that might reflect between two players. This is a country offering a total intellectual property protection, the kind of we have in Singapore, for instance. So the best two countries in the world for IP protection, the United States and Singapore. Why Miami? Most of the global business stay here in Miami for once and consider Miami as their headquarters for handling business in North America, in the Caribbean area, in the Latin American markets, and for one simple reason, Miami means business. It's the driver of the US and business growth, thanks to a dynamic business environment, a fantastic pro-business attitude, highly skilled and specialized workforce, competitive costs, a fantastic network of top-notch infrastructures from airport, ports, roads, a rising high-speed rail connection. Well, it's not the kind of high-speed we're familiar in Europe, of course, but we have to start sometime from scratch. So there's a connection, a railway link connecting currently Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and West Palm Beach, expected to reach Orlando Airport by the end of next year, and then turning all across Florida to reach Tampa, and which means that from Miami to West Palm Beach, which is slightly over 100 miles, you get in less than 1 hour, for instance. It's all these aspects about the pro business for Miami will be handled by Stanley right after me. This is the global gateway to US Latin market and managing North America. This is the area that Basil will cover extensively right after Stanley. This is the most international city in the US, both from the point of view of ethnicity living here, and both from arrivals, international arrivals at Miami Airport, which has actually surpassed JFK in New York. It's, as we said before, according to research created by Swiss bank U.S.A, the third richest global city in the world after Singapore and New York per purchasing power. There's a lot of money in Miami to do business and to invest. There's an attractive tax system, which will be beautifully described by Fiorella later on. And talking about Italy, Miami means lifestyle, luxury, and glamour. And it's a living magnet for all luxury that is made in Italy. So, with this brief introduction on the U.S. market, what's the first thing that a company who is eyeing this market has to do? This is something that very few companies consider, because in most cases, it's a kind of a copy and play and paste business model. I'm successful in Italy, I'm successful in my neighboring or markets in my comfort zone, so I can simply replicate the model in the United States, or try to find a distributor who can simply decide to handle my entire marketing activities and budget, and you depend entirely on a third party. It's no longer like this. This was probably a model that was widely used in the 60s and the 70s, and is no longer effective. The first thing that a company must understand is I have to understand the US market. This is something that we call pre-start. That means something that has to be done prior to considering entering the market, because you have to run a market business and intelligence analysis and competitive intelligence analysis on market related to your product, your brand, and in relation to what are your business purposes and business goals to run over here. You have to have a clear pictures of what competitors do in terms of communications, in terms of pricing, in terms of product presentation, which channels and markets they serve, and how they actively do so. Because again, as I said before, this is not a market where you can simply copy and paste without doing any kind of activity. This is also essential for a company to understand who's who, whom I have to partner with in terms of distribution channels, retailers, key players, whom I can partner for developing a strategic alliance or a commercial alliance, whether manufacturing or distribution, who I have to partner with if I want to create a joint venture, because I have a certain type of capabilities that I want to share and develop into the market to better serve a specific community, or a specific market, or a specific target. For instance, I have to understand from a qualitative and a quantitative perspective which are the market opportunities and the business potential, in order to end to the entrepreneur, to the board of directors, to the CEO, or to the family owners, independently of the size of the business, a clear picture that make them in the position to decide based on bespoke qualitative data, which are not taken from a database, but they are calculated and studied based on specific company needs and specific products, how I can enter a market, which is the budget that is required for entering the market, and which is the expected timeline to generate business, not a return, to start generating business. I'm saying this because another weak area is the fact that most of the companies expect, if not pretend, to step into this market and generate returns within a quarter or within a semester. And this is quite, well, besides being illogical, of course, it's out of any kind of expectation, especially if you do not do anything to support this market entry. One of the activities that we strongly suggest, also because the market has changed, is the relation with key players and key buyers, in the sense that American buyers tend to prefer or to advantage companies, foreign companies, Italian in this case, that have a local entity based in the US, American company dealing with another American entity. It's particularly favorable from several perspectives, English speaking with English speaking, a facility of time zone. If you're based in Miami or you're based in New York, you basically deal with the same time zone, so you don't have the 6 hours lag like we have right now, that it's 9 a.m. over here and 3 p.m. Across the Atlantic in Milan, for instance, speaking the same language, two legal entities dealing together. This could be the first step for a company, since it's not a costly operation, that gives also the advantage of setting up a soft entry level situation, which we may define as a representative office or a marketing office USA. We tend to favor the marketing office USA formula for one simple reason, because it allows the company to run operations in the market, directly from the market, from Miami in our case, in this case, and see how the market evolves in relation to their product in the course of 12 months. And after that, they can make a more wiser decision based on real market data that has been collected during the time that the marketing office has run operations. The most important aspect, marketing attitude that has to be considered is that marketing doesn't mean we have to publish advertising on all magazines. It's an old-fashioned model. You need to create relations in order to get results. And relations are at the base of developing new business. It's difficult to start building relations if you are 10,000 kilometers away and 6 time zones away, and if you're not present in the market. Something is taking a plane, go to New York for a meeting and fly back in Miami in the same day. It's something amazingly doable. You start at 7 o'clock in the morning, arrive in New York at 10 o'clock, full day meeting at 7 o'clock, 7 p.m. you fly back to Miami, 10 p.m. you're back in Miami, and you have the full business days to get meetings. This is something that is not doable, even cost-wise, besides the time difference out of Milan or out of Rome, for instance. And this gives you the flexibility also to answer promptly to any kind of interactions that might start up. Mingle with a C-suite level key buyers and key players. The C-suite is the high end of the board of directors, CEOs, chief marketing officers, chief legal officers of key buyers, prospect companies that you may consider dealing with in terms of distributing agreements, or dealing with for considering a partnership or a more structured partnership like a JV or an M&A, for instance. This can also allows running directly from the territory, from Miami, to participate and create relations and network, attending trade events directly over here. For instance, right now in these days, we have the Miami Art Basel, which is a magnet for the design industry and the art business over here in Miami until December the 5th, for instance. So basically, the most important aspect is to understand how to deal with this market, which could be the best business model and business plan, which are the legal and local compliances you have to comply with in order to run your business over here. And based on all these, we design and execute the best market entry strategy in order to be more effective and get return quite shortly. There's an important aspect to consider. The company that wants to do business in the US must be internally aligned back home. And for internally aligned, I mean that all the business functions, marketing, sales, finance, product development must be aligned, because it's marketing that drives the way and the roadmap and the pathway to understand if a specific product can be positioned in this market as is, or based on local tastes and local preferences and local requirements, it has to be adjusted to what the local market demands, or in case, be totally re-engineered or redesigned in order to be more effective or provide some kind of implements to step over here. What are the kind of industries that better suits this market? And with this, I conclude. It's basically everything that comes from Italy works amazingly well over here. Aerospace and transportation, creative services, consumer goods, design and furniture, executive education, gourmet food and fine wines, green tech and automation, luxury goods, of course, natural earth product, pharma and biotechnology, real estate and construction, tourism, hospitality, and leisure. And with this, I would stay for hours, of course, but time is, I guess, over. And so I pass the word to Stanley, who will introduce the beauty of Miami and Miami area for doing business.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Antonio. It's great to be here with everybody. As they say in Italian, buon pomeriggio a tutti. So it's really great to be here. My name is Stanley Rigaud. I'm Vice President of Trade and Logistics and Small Business at MiamiDade Beacon Council. MiamiDade Beacon Council is charged, well, first of all, MiamiDade Beacon Council is the official economic development partnership or organization for Miami-Dade County. Miami-Dade County is one of 67 counties in the state of Florida. And the Beacon Council is charged with promoting Miami-Dade County as a global business center. My role is to attract job-generating business investments to our community and to maintain an active working knowledge of the economic trends of Miami-Dade County and the state of Florida. And so with that, what I'd like to do is start with doing a small presentation about the state of Florida first, and then bring it down to the Miami area. Antonio, should I pull this up, or will you go through the slides?
Pull up, yes.
Okay, so bear with me 1 second. And just let me know when you can see it.
Okay.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. So again, starting with the state of Florida, which, as you all know, we're the United States has 50 states. Often the state of Florida is sort of often overlooked in the international community. There's a tendency to think of, when you think of the United States, it's California, it's New York, it's Texas, it's, perhaps Chicago, Boston, and Atlanta, but Florida doesn't get the attention that I think it deserves. And here what we're showing is that the GDP of Florida is nearly actually it's a little over $1 trillion. And we are fourth in the United States in terms of GDP, but if we were a country, we would be 17th globally. We're about a third of the population of Italy, a little over 21 million now. And we're the third most populous state in the United States after California and Texas. Our growth is really is increasing twice as fast as the rest of the United States. And we enjoy over 118 million visitors annually to the state of Florida, clearly because of tourism, but also because of a number of other things. One of the main reasons why more and more people are coming to the state of Florida is because of our business tax climate. We're fourth in the United States for doing business here. We do not have state taxes here. So that's one of the things that businesses like about Florida. As I said, the state of Florida has 67 counties, of which 3 of those counties, believe it or not, represent a third of the state. And those 3 counties are commonly known as South Florida, meaning Palm Beach, Broward, and Dade County. In those 3 counties alone, which we refer to as Miami MSA, because Miami is the name, is the brand, that represents just over 6.2 million people. And again, when you think about that, that's just those 3 counties represent a third of the state of Florida. And that's important because in Miami alone, as I said, we're $1 trillion for the state of Florida, but Miami alone, or Miami-Dade County, I should say, we represent a little over $344 billion in GRP. And that's, if we were a country, that would be the 39th largest economy in the world. So just to kind of put that in perspective. You know, this is a graph that we picked up from JLL, one of the big real estate companies here. And what this shows you at the top, where Miami is in terms of leading the nation in economic recovery after the pandemic. And as you can see, we're ahead of all of the major markets, whether it's Atlanta, Dallas, Philadelphia, LA, where our recovery is almost at 97.8% based on a study from JLL. You know, as an economic development organization, when people ask us, what is the key economic driver for coming to Miami? It's always about talent. So you'll see a lot of slides that focuses it in on the talent aspect. We've invested $2.27 billion in startups and what's considered late stage companies in 2020. And as a result of that, Miami now ranks number 8 amongst all the cities in the United States for the total amount of venture capital funding. We're 7th for total VC funding altogether. And we're up 171% in the first half of 2021. So just huge amount of growth. The focus on the companies that are coming to Miami, these are some of the companies that recently came down here, a lot from New York, many of them from California. I'm sure you recognize Blackstone, Starwood. These are major companies, CI Financial, that have made Miami their headquarters. So a lot in the tech and finance industry. And again, the drivers are tax, business climate, and talent as the key driver for coming to Miami. And the markets that we're focused on are obviously Chicago, San Francisco, and New York City. We have over 1,400 multinationals in Miami. Here's a quick snapshot of some of the key businesses that have made either a regional headquarter or their corporate headquarter in Miami. And again, you know, talent is that key economic driver. One of the things that we're very proud of is the number of R1 and R2 ranked research universities that are here in the state of Florida and in Miami, I should say. And we also have 47% of all the tech talent, with 15% of coding schools now exist in Miami, really sourcing that talent and making sure that we're attracting talent to come to Miami. The other thing that's really important about Miami is that in the total United States, we are the #1 metro for foreign-born population. In addition to that, 41% of our foreign-born population holds an advanced degree. So these are people with, you know, knowledge of several languages and technical. So we're not talking language to get by, but really being able to converse with business in multiple languages. This is a snapshot of the migration that's happening. As you can see on the map here, Miami has the highest percentage of migration from from other communities in the United States. So, more people are coming to Miami than they are going to Jacksonville, Austin. As a matter of fact, when you look at San Francisco, Chicago, they're actually in the negative in terms of how many people are going there. So Miami is growing rapidly. Generally speaking, this is before the pandemic. The state of Florida would see about 1,000 people coming into the state of Florida per day. And in the South Florida area, so again, meaning Broward, Palm Beach, and Miami-Dade County, it's nearly 900 per week that are coming into the South Florida region. So huge amounts of people coming into Miami for good reason. As I said, we're the #1 in the startup activity. It's by the Kauffman Foundation Index. And now currently #2 in the nation for tech job creation. And this is really, when you look at companies like Reef, Kaseya, Spotify, Sixtera, these are big companies with average salaries of over $100,000, 15,000 jobs just among these companies right here, all making Miami a technology hub for them. This one is an interesting source from Glass Technologies. Here again, you can see that the first half of 2021, Miami is leading all the large metros in the creation of new tech jobs. So we're ahead of Phoenix, we're ahead of Austin, we're ahead of Atlanta, New York City, Boston. Miami is, just at the 28, 29% of tech job creation. And again, it just speaks to the level of innovation here in Miami and why people are looking at Miami. We are the fastest growing city for entrepreneurs. Again, this is driven by that diverse foreign-born population. 41% of that are people with advanced degrees. And again, we've seen that 45% increase in new business creation, mostly across finance, entertainment, retail, and technology. This was a quick snapshot by LinkedIn showing that really, when you look at the top 3 markets for entrepreneurs, all 3 of them are in the state of Florida. So the greater Orlando, the Miami-Fort Lauderdale area, the greater Tampa Bay. So 3 in Florida before you see anything outside. Leading after us would be Houston and Dallas in Texas. This is a pretty cool, snapshot of the puzzle as we see it for tech and innovation here, the ecosystem that we're building when we look at our investors, our incubators, accelerators, the sort of high ed tech, and how with our universities, the research that's being done here, and a lot of the startups that have made Miami their home. So this is all a piece of the ecosystem, the tech and innovation ecosystem, and a great snapshot of what you see in Miami. By the way, I'll make sure that Antonio can share this presentation with everybody. So I know I'm going a little fast, but you'll all be able to get a copy of this presentation. One of the things I think that makes Miami uniquely, an incredible global city is our airport and our seaport. As you can see, we are the #1 airport in the United States for international freight. And I know Basil will talk a little bit more about that. And we're the #1 U.S. airport for international passengers. Over 100 airlines at Miami International Airport. As it relates to our port, we are the only port currently south of Virginia that's Panamex ready. Everybody knows we're the #1 cruise capital in the world. And so I think when you look at the total trade and logistics industry, it's no wonder why a lot of logistics companies have made Miami their home. Clearly, unbeatable weather here, plenty of entertainment when it comes to sport teams, a lot in the arts when it comes to museums. Antonio talked about Art Basel that's here, huge attraction. It's no wonder that people like to come to Miami. One of the things that I also like to talk about is really the cost of living. When you think about the cost of living in New York, in San Francisco, in Seattle, you can see here, this is New York at 248.6 is sort of the average against what is the national average. So if the national average cost of living is 100%, Miami is just 15% above that 100. So everyone is experiencing this, these inflationary measures that are going through right now, but no one is seeing it at the level that we are in New York, in San Francisco, or in Seattle, at least no one in the Miami area. So it's a good thing to just point out. So now let me talk a little bit about the Beacon Council. Antonio alluded to this. As I said earlier, the Beacon Council is Miami-Dade County's official economic development organization. Part of the reason why the Dade County helped to create the Beacon Council was to provide businesses a place to come and help them establish their business under confidentiality, because with most local governments, at least in Florida, we operate under the sunshine laws, meaning that when you do business with local governments, everything is public record. Whereas with the Beacon Council, when you come and you're looking to do business and you want to preserve some degree of confidentiality before you make an announcement or anything like that, the Beacon Council is the place to come because we operate under confidentiality. We're also provide businesses as a courtesy to businesses. So there's no cost for us, for the Beacon Council, assisting small businesses in establishing their businesses. We've been around for 36 years. We are a public-private partnership, and that means that we are partially funded by the county, but we're also sustained by member investors, such as our two other guest speakers. FedEx is a member investor of the Beacon Council. Marcum is a member investor of the Beacon Council. We're one of only 65 accredited economic development organizations worldwide. And what that really means is that we're audited on a regular basis to make sure that all the work that we do is in order. So these are some of the services that the Beacon Council does. And again, all of our services are confidential and they are at no cost. So it really behooves you to get in touch with somebody at the Beacon Council, myself, happy to help anybody that would like to learn more about the Beacon Council. But our work is helping a business come to Miami, find a location, help them find an attorney if they need an attorney, an accountant, the right banking, a warehouse if that's something that they need, get through any of the business paperwork with compliance that they might need. So site location, property search, economic research. So we subscribe to a number of economic engines. So we're able to provide you with some general market research within the industry that you're in. And as Antonio said, I think that the key thing about the Beacon Council, I believe, I've been with them for just under 7 years now, is our ability to connect you with the rest of the county. I think relationships are key to organizations like the Beacon Council. And when you come to Miami and you connect with an organization like the Beacon Council, which by the way is different from the Chamber of Commerce, where our focus is more on industry sectors and helping businesses establish themselves, whereas the Chamber is more of a collegial, business relationship with other businesses. We're the organization that helps to expedite any permitting that a small business might need, any workforce needs that you need in terms of finding talent. The Beacon Council is very helpful in that regard. And of course, we're the only agency in Miami-Dade County that works with providing incentives if those incentives applies to the business that's creating jobs here in Miami. And that concludes my presentation. I'm sure there'll be some questions at the end, but I turn it back over to you, Antonio.
Thanks, Stanley. I want to say that I have several questions, but I will ask them at the end of the first round of interventions, if you agree.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. So the floor goes to Fiorella Belardi, Senior Manager, International Tax, Marcum Accountants Advisors. And Fiorella, we could also speak Italian, but since we are speaking English, we go on like that. What about the American tax system and the incentives for Italian companies in Florida?
Yeah, grazie Riccardo. Per sorte non devo parlare l'italiano perché non è molto buono, capisco more, but that's good. I'm going to change to English. So I have a small presentation also. So following Stanley, let me know if you can see it.
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So let me put it in presentation mode. Okay, there we go. All right, thank you. All right, so just to let everybody know about Marcum, I know Stanley mentioned it, that's great. So for everybody that is listening, Marcum, it's one of the biggest firms in United States. We have offices in almost all the states of United States, and we also have alliance with two outside, with two internationals that is called LEA and ECOVI. So we have access to outside offices outside United States. We are a leading international accounting advisory firm, and we provide pre-immigration tax planning not only for individuals, but also for business. So it will be, as Antonio mentioned it at the beginning, if you are considering to, go to United States or start doing business in United States, it will not be only wise and most likely will save you time and money to do a pre-planning, not only for your business, but also for yourself. If you are coming as the owner, you are moving with your family, the idea is that you really thrive and, get to the market. So just keep that in mind when you are considering, doing business outside your home or your country. So going to taxes, I don't want to be too technical, but just want to share the things that you need to keep in mind. I don't want to make everybody sleep talking about taxes, but just to consider that in the United States, there's like mainly two tax vehicles that you can use. One is going to be a corporation, and the other one is going to be a pass-through entity that we call. It's a transparent entity. Pass-through entities basically is going to be the famous LLC, and the tax brackets or the tax rate that you're going to have when you set up an LLC with foreign owners. All right, we are just assuming that Italians are coming. Italians are going to be the foreign owners of this LLC. It's going to be between 10 to 37% tax bracket and withholdings. In the other hand, if you have a corporation, corporations are subject to a federal tax bracket of 21%. It's important to keep in mind that states will tax you besides United States via IRS. A state will tax you is independent, they're different. And one of the great things of Miami, as Stanley mentioned, besides all the good things that he said, is that the corporate rate is quite low. We are now at 3.5, even though it's going to be increased next year to 5.5. You're going to find out there other states, and you can get until 12% rate, besides the federal rate. So just keep that in mind. That's why Miami is so great. And there's no taxes at the state level for individuals. So that's other thing that that's why we have everybody here, because nobody wants to pay extra taxes unless you want, and you can go to New York, but that's not the idea. Come to Miami. So, okay, moving on. I think that as tax incentives, or more than incentives, I would say United States provide different tax tools or mechanism to make your taxes or your business structure efficient. Miami, it's the capital of Latin America. It's viewed as a platform from Europe to not only enter in the Miami market, but also use it as a platform to go to Latin America and Caribbean. And so considering or keeping that in mind, you might want to have two structures. One structure to enter at the market as set your foot, you can set in United States, and another different structure as using maybe as a holding and go conquer the rest of the world. So one of the first topics that you see there is ECI, or effectively connected income. So let's say that you have an LLC that really do not have effectively connected income. You're using United States as a platform. You're gonna have, and I have some more other slides with the structure so you don't get lost. Let's say you might have an LLC with foreign owners, no really effectively connected income, it's just a holding. And below you can set up your foreign, let's say Italy or other, countries in Europe or Latin America. You're not gonna pay taxes in the United States, which is great. But you're gonna have all the benefit, you're gonna have the protection, you're gonna have a US bank account, but you're not gonna pay taxes because you're using as a platform. So just keep that in mind behind your brain, keep that in there, save it somewhere because you're gonna use it in the future. There are other tools like FIDI. It's one of the incentives that the United States came up recently a few years ago, when a US corporation that provides services outside the United States to foreign, clients, that income is going to be taxed not at the regular 21% tax, federal tax rate, but it will be taxed at 13.125%, which is considerably low to the regular tax rate. Why? Because they want to incentivize, U.S. entities or foreign people having U.S. entities dealing with the rest of the world. So that's an incentive right there that you need to keep in mind when you come. Why Miami? It's also so important because, as I mentioned, the states are separate from the IRS. So not all the states will follow up or honor these benefits. Miami, being such a multicultural state, will honor them because they want to be the capital. They want to be the platform, from the different countries to do business. So that's something that you need to keep in mind. There's a couple other two, I can say, incentives is the 245A participation exemption regimen. You don't have to learn this. What you need to know from this is that if you have a foreign company and you decide to set up a US corporation, all the distributions from the foreign company to the US corporation will be tax-free. That's something that you need to keep in mind. So just keep that in mind on the back of your head next to the FIDI deduction that I just mentioned. That's important to know. And I can say other one is really important. It's the portfolio interest exemption. One of the things that you want to do is to have you come create your startup or bring your family or a business and include it and make it, incorporated in the United States. But also you wanna expand, you wanna bring investors. So when you bring investors to a US company, these foreign investors, they're gonna be subject, usually general rule, 30% of tax withholding from the investments that they're gonna, from the payment, the interest, the way you set it up, the investors. You don't want that. So there's an exemption for them to go to 30% to 0. So that's another incentive or tip that you need to keep in mind, that when you have a foreign investor and you want to make your business attractive, you cannot start saying, well, by the way, we're going to have to withhold you 30% of your earnings. That's not the way you start the business. You can, say, well, there's a way to go, from those 30% to 0. So that's important. But do everything that I have said and actually be able to use these tools 100%, it's necessary to have a pre-planning. So United States will welcome you. It's friendly. It's, as Antonio mentioned, it's really fast. In 2 weeks, you can have your company with a bank account active and doing operations. But if you're doing wrong or you don't pre-plan, it's going to be expensive and a pain. It's going to be a pain to change it and make it like the real tool that you want to have. Now, good news, there's a treaty with Italy, there's a tax treaty. So, well, what this means is that for the passive income, the tax rate that is general rule 30% will be reduced. It can be reduced to 5 or 15%, depending of the type of income and depending of the structure that is set up. So that's also an incentive from all the Italians to come to the United States to do business. We have a tax treaty, so that's really good. You're not gonna be paid double tax. All right, I already shared the slides with Antonio, so I'm pretty sure everybody will have questions after, but you can have also, you can ask for the slides, so you have it there. You don't have to memorize all this. Just know that if you do pre-planning and you contact Marcum, you will be fine. That's what you need to know. All right, so just a few more things. I want you to kind of be able to quantify what the tips that I have already mentioned. So let's say, you have your Italian corporation. The Italian corporation said this LLC, transparent, do not exist for taxes. If there's no ECI, whatever income is coming from, excuse me, the LLC to the corporation will be zero tax. There's no withholding tax, zero tax due. Now, at the level of the corporation that said that their ECI, you guys are doing business in the United States, the tax rate that the corporation, the Italian corporation will be subject is going to be 21%. So, which is very attractive. Plus, remember, always add the state where you are doing your business. Besides the most popular question that clients ask me, how do I pay lower taxes possible? The next question is, in what state I have to incorporate my company? And that will depend. I mean, everybody knows Delaware, Wyoming, the most famous one. But if you're going to do business in California, or you're really going to do business in New York or Miami, you need to incorporate in those states. And then you need to add to your equation or your business plan that you might going to be paying taxes on those states as well. Not only income tax, but you might be subject to sales tax. That it would be VA tax, I think, in Italy, but here is sales tax, so just keep that in mind. Okay, the other type of a structure that we can have is a partnership, also a flow through, but no partnership exists. And if we have the same corporation as the foreign owners, the corporation, the Italian corporation as owner of the US partnership, we will have the same tax consequences, because it's also a transparent or flow through entity, 21% tax rate. And if there's no ECI, you are using the partnership as platform, as I mentioned before, you're not going to be subject to taxes. There is a reporting, yes, IRS wants to know what you guys are doing, but there's no tax, which is a good consequence. And I think that one of the most typicals that we see when, for example, you need more structures, or you need to have maybe attract more investors, it's just have a corporation. So we don't have a pass-through entity, it's a rigid entity. So the Italian corporation comes to the United States and set up a US corporation. In this case, the tax break will be 21%. We will have, imagine it's Florida, we will have the taxes from Florida. And then when we distribute, we repatriate the earnings to Mother Italy, we can use the tax treaty. So we will have only 5% of taxes on the distributions as a withholding. So our total effective rate is less than 29%, 28.9% to be very precise. So these are just numbers I want you to quantify, that it still will be attractive to come to United States. I know United States is not Panama, it's not BBI, but even though to be one of, it's still with all, not, even though it's not a paradise, Miami kind of it is. So keep that in mind, because it still will be attractive to come and do business in the United States, specifically in Miami. other topic that Antonio asked me to go through, it's the EB-5. And here just a little disclaimer, even though I'm not a lawyer or immigration lawyer, just for you to know, the EB-5 is one of a visa that you can use to come to the United States, an investor visa. And Marcum also provides a service to support the lawyers with the EB-5 visa documentation. So it's like just a brief explanation. It's a 1 million that you need to pay for the visa. You invest that money in a passive investment in the United States. There's a list and there's lawyers involved to help you to go through all the process, but you need to support or actually have like a traceability from where that million, the value of the visa is coming from. That's when Marcum start working, and we help to follow up from where that, let's say $1 million, yes, is coming. It may be you, the person applying, inherit the money. It was doing through different business, or it can be money that you've been collecting or saving from a period of years. So just keep in mind that if you're going to apply for that visa, you need to prove from 1 million to 1 cent where all the money it is coming from. So don't stress out for that, because we have a great team in EB-5. We have lawyers, we work with them. And we have the experience to help you figure it out how you get, which is great, how you get to get to that $1 million to apply for the visa. I'm pretty sure you guys will have a lot of questions. As I mentioned, the slide will be at Antonio have them, so we can share them, no problem. And in the slide, you also have my email. So if you have any question, feel free to reach me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fiorella. I wanted to tell you that usually in Italy, when we hear about taxes, we don't sleep. But on the contrary, we can't sleep anymore. But this concerns the Italian fiscal system.
Yeah, I saw the tax bracket, so I know what you're saying.
Okay. Okay, joking aside, the word goes to Basil Khalil, Vice President Operations FedEx Federal Express, who tell us about logistics for exports from Italy to the USA, which is a very, very important issue. The word to you, Basil.
Thank you very much. And I wanted to say thank you to Economy MTW Group for coordinating this dialogue, and we're very honored to be part of it. I do have some slides that I wanted to share as well. Let me try and get that up. Can you guys see the screen now?
Yes, we can. Yes.
All right, let's just get in presentation mode. Okay, so what I wanted to make sure to do for particularly the companies that are on the listening today is I wanted to give some of the opportunities that we are seeing within the U.S. market. In particular, while the United States is obviously the largest global economy in the world, there are pockets of opportunities that I think could be very beneficial for Italian companies. So I wanted to make sure to share some of that. Also, as part of Antonio's request in bringing, we wanted also to share a little bit about what we're doing in Italy, how we're having connectivity to not only the United States, but the Americas, as well as in Europe, because we see a lot of opportunities to create access for Italian companies to increase their consumer base. And then finally, I'd like to touch a little bit, maybe with some personal examples of why we decided to put our divisional headquarters in Miami, how the Beacon Council actually helped us with that process, and why we really think Miami is a great opportunity if you're looking for a point of presence to support not only hit the United States, but the Americas in general. So I wanted to share some statistics that we recently have come out. When you look at 2020, the e-commerce retail segment in the United States was about a $430 billion business or opportunity. By 2025, it's expected to get to $563 billion. E-commerce has grown a lot, especially during the pandemic, and it has changed the very model that that companies have to follow in order to provide the right customer experience and gain the type of business that they would like from the U.S. consumer market. When we take a look at the number of potential consumers that can be opened up for Italian companies, in the U.S., it's expected that we'll have about 291 million people that are expected to shop online. You take a look at the population and where the growth opportunities are. And when you talk about cross-border e-commerce, that is growing at a rate of 10% a year. So you can see that there's some great opportunities, even though the United States is considered more of a mature market, where there are pockets for companies like yourselves to be able to increase the consumer base and really gain a good amount of business. The challenge is that you have to have a good logistics partner to be able to provide that. And logistics has become a very, very critical component. As Antonio mentioned, there's marketing, there's Fiorella talked about the tax implications. The logistics in the United States are pretty critical. And so I wanted to share a little bit about what our company does. We've been around for close to 48 years. FedEx is really a series of digital and physical networks. When you think about moving goods, moving an envelope or moving a parcel is very different than moving a palletized freight piece. And so there are different needs and different networks that are needed to optimize that. And that's a lot of what we have tried to build up with our different companies. We're in 220 countries. We have over 500,000 team members around the world. And we are the largest air cargo carrier in the world. We have 689 aircraft. And we're approaching our 50th year anniversary, so we're kind of young, I think. One of the critical things from his corporate social responsibilities, we're trying to influence 50 million lives in a tangible way as part of our corporate social responsibility. Now, as being the largest air cargo carrier, I wanted to show you just an image of our network connectivity from a global perspective. For this audience, I do want to touch upon what we're doing in Europe and particularly in Italy, and then kind of drill down to how Italy is being connected really to the rest of to the United States and the Americas, and the type of infrastructure that's there in the United States to help make sure that you can reach every single consumer in the United States and the Americas. So in Europe, several years ago, we felt like we needed to make an acquisition. We acquired a company called TNT in Europe and have been doing the integration over the last several years. And what that did is that created a great presence for us to be able to offer services to Italian companies to Europe and intra-country. This gives you just some of the statistics. Of course, we provided this presentation. It can be available for you to you go through. But obviously, we've really substantially increased our presence in Europe. And when we talk about specifically Italy, the acquisition helped us really add 4,000 new team members, which was very critical for us. It gave us the opportunity to connect all points of Italy together via ground. We have 83 stations in country. We have 8 road hubs. We have 6 air gateways, which allows us not only to do intra-country trucking, but intra-country air. So you offer fast and slow or more economical services. What it also does is we have our operations in Malpensa, which then allows us to connect to Europe and some of the hubs that we have in CDG and really the connectivity to the rest of Europe. But also we now have services and flights connecting Italy to the United States directly. And what that does is it allows us obviously to offer very, very fast services to the United States. It allows you to connect in a way that competes with many of the companies that are based in the United States in terms of transit. And it gives you a lot of flexibility there with, again, economical services and then obviously the premium services. And by connecting Italy to the United States, we are able to offer really next day service. So going from Italy to any point in the most points in the United States, you can get there by next day by 8:30 a.m. We have Europe first, which allows you to connect to Europe, of course, if you're trying to expand your operations there. And then, of course, we have the more economical services that are provided as well. So now we kind of talked about Europe and Italy and the connectivity, and we do have direct flights into the U.S. The connectivity and our network within the United States covers the whole country. Some of you may not realize, and I think maybe Antonio mentioned that it's 6 hours time difference or time zones away, Italy to Miami. The United States is vast. Miami and Hawaii is 5 time zones behind Miami. So it is a large geography, and FedEx is able to connect all of it, with the exception of some spots in the desert and maybe the top of the Rocky Mountains. Maybe the only areas we're not covering, but we do cover the majority of the United States, and we can do it in next day or 1 to 2 day service, which allows us then the opportunity to provide services or solutions for you. You can deliver to a residential place. We have 14,000 pickup points. 90% of the population lives within 5 minutes of a FedEx facility or 5 miles of a FedEx facility. So again, there's some great opportunities to create value as you look at it expanding into the United States. The great thing about the US as well, and I think Fiorella mentioned some of this, is that there are some great benefits. When you're shipping internationally, there's an entry type that's called entry type 86. And essentially what that did is it allowed you to get that goods under the value of $800 through without duties and taxes. And so that it allows things to go much more smoother if you wanted to start operations immediately and start expanding to some of the markets within the United States. So I've shared some of the capabilities here. Again, I don't want to touch upon all of them, but there's a great amount of connectivity intra-US and of course from Italy to the United States. So now I want to kind of touch a little bit more into the whole purpose of why we're talking here. Miami is really the gateway to the Americas. About 26 years ago, we decided that we were going to expand more in international and particularly in Latin America. And we reached out to the Beacon Council. They were able to help us find a location, help us give us some information. And it became very evident that the capital of Latin America was Miami. Again, this was 26 years ago. Miami has become the gateway to the Americas and the gateway really to the world. And you can see that by the natural progression of our network over time. There is connectivity from Miami via via rail, the rail network. I think one of the previous speakers mentioned about that. Our port is really world-class and there's great opportunities there. The airport has connectivity not only with cargo carriers, but also with passengers. If you're moving across anywhere within Latin America, odds are probably stopping in Miami to connect. That's the level of connectivity there is. And of course, there's connectivity to all the major points within the United States as well. So if you think about Miami and you just did a circle around Miami with about 3 hours flight time, you would connect to almost the majority of the population centers of the Americas. And that's, as Antonio said, for the time it takes you to go buy popcorn and watch a movie, you're pretty much able to get to New York, you're able to get to Central America, Mexico, and many of the major metropolitan parts of the United States. So it gives you great connectivity there. Miami Airport really controls the flows of the Western Hemisphere. It's handling about 79% of all air imports and 74% of all exports, particularly to Latin America. So again, great opportunities here. As it's part of the United States, you have the ability to connect to the US. You have the ability to further expand to the 50 countries and territories south. And there's connectivity to Canada as well, many points across Canada. So it really, that's why Miami is the natural spot for growth. To give some perspective about what we have seen between 2019 and 2020, our volumes in Miami had grown 30.9%. So we see the opportunity there. In fact, you know, we started in Miami 26 years ago with our divisional headquarters. This year, we've expanded our facilities. We've added 70,000 square feet of cold room space. So if you're in pharma, perishables, any of those type of capabilities, we see the value and opportunity there. And being in South Florida, you have a host of capabilities, not just across FedEx, but all across the trade and logistics community that is in South Florida to do any type of solution you need in the US and in Latin America. So I hope that gives you some insight about it. I'm sure there's going to be questions about various issues with supply chain and challenges. I'm looking forward to any of the questions that I can answer. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Basil. Thanks to all the speakers for the really interesting and very concrete interventions. I think so useful for those who follow us. So I will start with a few questions, if you agree. Antonio, I have a luxury question. You talked about the importance of the ability to make a difference, because in the US there is already everything, but they're looking for the product that makes a difference. Italian luxury certainly makes a difference. Is there room for a greater presence of Italian luxury in the United States via Miami?
Well, as I said before, Miami is the place for luxury. Miami is a magnet for a luxury lifestyle and glamour, and it's probably one of the most fashionable place to live in and to do business, especially in these sectors. We have to define what is luxury first, in the sense that Italian luxury, especially for the leading brands, has developed a concept, a culture of Italian lifestyle, starting from La Dolce Vita in the 60s and going onward with fashion stylists, fashion designers, and the automotive industry. Having said so, luxury is the ability to create something unique that is manufactured with premium materials, with a certain design and style, which is probably made the difference between everything that is made in Italy with everything made in another country. Style and design and taste makes the difference. While, of course, big brands can afford the luxury of having hefty budgets to promote products, of course, and that's easy. I mean, in the sense that right now, at the Art Basel in Miami, French Maison Louis Vuitton is actually presenting the new collection for travel, for instance, and of course that's quite easy for a brand like this. Coming down to small businesses, small companies that of course do produce fantastic products. The point is that they have to support this product with communication. You have to make the product known to those who are in charge for developing brand awareness. The point is you can have the best product, but without brand awareness, that product remains within the factory itself. It doesn't cross the ocean. So the most important aspect is to promote the brand. And that's communication, creating with press campaign, creating with presentation, bespoke presentations, creating with developing and nurturing relations in the market to introduce why this product is different, getting in touch with those who can actually deliver the product within the market. Here, there's the highest demand worldwide for luxury product, which means that there's the desire to purchase luxury product, and there's the capability in terms of purchasing money to purchase those prices. So it's not luxury is less and less price sensitive. It's more related to the idea of the emotional connection that connects the consumer with the brand. If the product and the brand reflect a certain emotion or lifestyle of the consumer, the product is a winner. But you have to communicate these qualities somehow, in the sense that it's not sufficient to say, let me find the distributor and the distributor will do all the rest. No, you have to do on yourself in order to attract the interest of the distributor. And this is not just by sending a sample or a catalog or whatever, because most of the times, especially if this comes from outstanding companies, but without a brand recognition, these catalogs will be trashed right away or remain in the email without even being opened, for instance, because nobody knows who is the sender. Also, here in the US, you have to be very careful when you send email, because unless you are authorized to receive emails, probably you are trashed right away or get in the spam folder and remain there. So the expectation on one side is definitely lost on the other. So definitely it's building relations, invest in communication budget, invest in do marketing activities to present the product, a product launch, product presentation, attending a trade show, but not attending a trade show. I might just make a very quick example. There is also an evolution in trade shows, in the sense that it's no longer sufficient to get a booth and then monitor the booth like a soldier waiting for potential prospect buyers to stop by and make questions. You need to make the booth interactive. The booth is the least important aspect. You need to create interactions. You need to create an event. You need to be creative in the sense of building something that can attract the interest of passersby. You need to create a cocktail. You need to create a presentation. You need to develop a white paper or provide relevant, interesting content that may be a lecture, a small seminar, or something that makes your product stand out compared to the others of the competitors.
Italian SMEs are not used to this kind of activities, are they?
Yes, that's right. But this is the next step, in the sense that Italian SMEs are not accustomed to this, but SMEs of other markets that do not have the tradition and the style that have made Italy stand out and be different are doing so. And so I understand that it's a matter of budget, but I always say, I wrote an article on our business review saying with a particular title, foreign market entry is not for everyone. L'internazionalizzazione non è per tutti. And I didn't want to be, I'm going to say, everyone has the right to export their product. But in order to make this product known, you have to have the company culture, the budget to sustain something. You don't have to spend millions. Even a small operation that needs creativity. Creativity makes the difference. And when you talk about creativity, you don't need to spend money, big numbers, big figures. You need just to be creative to try to be attractive. Otherwise, unfortunately, the product will remain in the factory and there will be something similar to that created by somebody in another country that will do that. It's very simple.
Thanks, Antonio. A question for Stanley. I was struck by the figure on Miami's ability to recover from the pandemic, 97.8%. What are the strengths that enabled such a strong performance?
Yeah, so I think a lot of it had to do with, it was interesting that during the pandemic, the one area that hardly saw any, that didn't realize a major loss was international freight, international cargo. And it goes back to what Basil was saying, that when it comes to our total logistics capabilities, Miami was very strong. So a lot of the warehouses, anything in the industrial market just kept moving along. And I think we adapted protocols that made sense. Miami-Dade County, which is the largest population in the state of Florida in terms of the different counties, even though there were moments where there were some lockdown, but generally speaking, people adhered to a lot of the masks protocols that were in place, but didn't necessarily shut down, when it came to the movement of goods. Miami is also a state that we don't manufacture a lot. I think when you look at Miami, we're more of a services than goods. And so a lot of the work could still be done remotely. And I think that was helpful. We've been operating, we never missed a beat. We just moved from our office to our homes and just kept doing a lot of the work that we normally do. We were waiting for our borders to reopen. Obviously, the cruise industry is such an important industry in Miami, all of hospitality, that took a hit for sure. But surprisingly, I would say that we have a culture here in the whole state of Florida, particularly in the Miami area, that it's that culture of freedom. We're not going to let this pandemic slow us down, and there was a lot of that. And I think we saw a lot of states that had more restrictive policies decided that they wanted to come down to Miami and do business because we didn't have the level of restriction that other states had. But at the same time, I think we also made sure that we were following the protocols. Early on, there was some, we did have a high level of the infection rate, the hospitalization rates were high, but I think over time, people became accustomed to the protocols and we kept on it. But I would say the majority of it was, especially as it relates to our services and the industrial market, we really never missed a beat.
Let me just add a quick note about this, because right now, Florida is the state, the U.S. state with the lowest number of cases of the entire 50 states. Actually, we have only 3 cases per 100,000 inhabitants. Fantastic. If we compare to northern states like Michigan or Minnesota, where the ratio is over 400 per 100,000, it's fantastic, the job that has been done here in Florida to maintain. Actually, last summer, Florida was the worst state in terms of cases above all of the US, and now only 3 out of 100,000.
So Florida is really the place to be, also from a pandemic point of view.
Yes.
And, you know,
As I used to say, yes.
Okay. Fiorella, do the tax benefits also extend to companies that see Miami as a platform to Latin America and Caribbean? And to what extent? You mentioned it, but I think it's an important point.
Yes. So, I mean, and I think actually Basil mentioned something of this as well. Because the fact that you are in the United States, you are going to have the same benefits. I mean, you're going to have legal protection. You're going to have a certainty of the country stability, politically wise, for example, as well, that we don't see. I mean, there's like a snowball effect in outside United States, in the other countries, Europe and Latin America, above all the other countries. So you will have it just because you have a company in United States, even if it's not maybe directly doing the business in United States, you're using as a platform, you are not, there's no difference for United States. You're going to have the same benefits. That's, it's just the tax structure is what actually allow you to get maybe more benefits, or it's not even more benefits. It's just use it correctly through the model of business that you are required or that you need in that moment. So I think that comes back, your question kind of lead us back to the pre-planning that is needed to do. If you are coming to United States, and the same numbers that for the question that you did to Stanley, it shows you that in Miami, you're going to find resilient people that it's ambitious, people that is prepared. We want to work. We want to, get the American dream. We want the business to succeed. So it's even if you use the business as a platform or not, you're going to have the same conditions. You're going to have the same deductions, tax benefits. It's the pre-planning that you need to do. It's like your homework. You need to do your homework before you just come and open an LLC.
I was wondering if it is common that foreign companies use and see Miami and Florida as a platform to the south more than to the north.
It is very common, especially for startups. You don't want to, let's say Chile or Colombia or Argentina or Peru, we are all those countries are now in a political situation now. This is not very stable. So if you have a great idea, you don't want to say the investor, hey, just come, give me your millions, put it in Argentina startup. You're going to put it in a U.S. LLC or U.S. corporation startup that has a franchise or have offices in Latam. That's the way that you're going to set up your model. So whatever happened in Argentina, you still have this U.S. protection at the level of their startup holding, for example. So it's extremely common. I think it's the last 2 years. I have seen a quite increase in that model.
Thanks, Fiorella. A question for Basil. With the difficulties experienced in supply chains during the pandemic, supply chains tend to get shorter, creating regional macro blocks. Is it therefore, in your opinion, increasingly necessary to produce in the US, or at least to have a solid presence there in order to be present in that market?
Yeah, I think if you kind of take a look at from a macro level of what's happened, obviously we went through a pandemic. There was, the global supply chains were really optimized, and the pandemic, it was just never planned to shut down the global supply chain. And as a result of that, you started to see these massive, what we call like a bullwhip effect that happens. And as countries started to open up, others were not open, and it has just created massive disruptions that we're probably going to see for the next several months. What it did identify, I think, for a lot of businesses is that you do need to have not only the global supply chain is very important, but it's also good from a resiliency standpoint to have more regional type of solutions particularly if you're looking at your consumer base and trying to get into the United States. So having a presence in the US would obviously, I think, benefit a lot of the companies that we're talking about here. But I think also that the concept of nearshoring, I think you said like the regional type of model where you can also explore manufacturing in some of the Latin America markets with connectivity to the United States can also become a scenario. So again, that's what you see with Miami. Being in Miami, you get that level of visibility. That's why, again, we moved our divisional headquarters to Miami 26 years ago. Great connectivity to the south. And that's where I think Stanley may have more of the statistics, but several hundred companies have really put a presence, not only for Latin America now, but again, we see Miami now has become much more of an Americas and global player on the world stage.
Thanks, Basil. Antonio, what are the sectors in which you believe there is more space for Italian SMEs in the United States via Miami?
Well, the traditional fashion furniture, of course. I would say I wouldn't make a list in terms of preference, very frankly, in the sense that I would turn the question into not the sector, but the business culture of the company that intends to explore new market, in the sense that size doesn't matter. You could be a mid-market company, you can be a micro or a small company. We experience when we run our marketing office USA on behalf of Italian companies, we are actually experiencing different dimensions in terms of business size. It's the culture, the business culture of the company that stands more important. Besides that, if you want to enter and develop and expand your business into a new market, US in this case, you need to be prepared to do so. There's some kind of homework to do, not only understanding the market by running a market intelligence analysis to see if you are fit for that, but also if the company is fit, if it's there's an export readiness of the company, which means align all the functions related to doing business in the new market. That's important. Then all, as I said before, mechanical, precision, fashion, food, furniture, these are the top 4 sectors that step over here, and they have quite instrumental ability to develop and increase. I wouldn't neglect one sector versus another. It's more really, again, I'm repeating myself, the business culture of the company and how they are ready to do business in a new market where there's a different business etiquette, the business culture, and we assist them in doing so, because it is important to run business to actually know. We usually used to say as a payoff, we know the market, we know the players, we know the business, in the sense that you need to understand how to do business in this market in order to be successful. So that's most important. But it's company culture first.
Okay, but
any business can succeed over here, any industry can succeed. It's important to properly know how to address the market.
And is the company culture of Italian SMEs ready or not?
Okay, so the point is, okay, I want to be very polite in the sense that there's a kind of attitude, let's say cultural attitude, in pretending or assuming that just because you have a great product, the product sells per se, automatically, across different time zones and across different markets and different cultures, which is not true at the very end, because one product can be successful in the US and totally negative in Japan or in other markets. So the aspect is company needs to do some homework, internal homework first, to understand if they are ready to do that.
That's exactly what I wanted you to say. That's exactly what I wanted you to say.
Sorry?
I was saying that this is exactly what I wanted you to say, because I agree.
Yeah. I mean, most of a family business run successful business domestically, but you need to have skills and competence in expanding business. When you want to grow and get bigger, you need also to understand how to adjust, be flexible, and understand what is required from a finance perspective, from a budgeting perspective, from a marketing perspective, also from a manufacturing perspective, because if you want to step into a market, probably you need to adjust your product to what is demanded or required. Because as I said before, it's not a copy and paste that you simply ship a product and that becomes a blockbuster product overnight simply because it's been highly successful in Milan or in Paris or in London. I mean, this is not a different planet. This is a very selective, highly competitive, almost mature market. That doesn't mean that it's closed to the rest of the world, but it requires, there's a demand for nothing, there's a request for nothing, and there's a demand for unique products, or as I said before, products that have some sort of selling propositions, differentiations, and these differentiations need to be supported culturally from the company perspective, marketing from a business perspective.
Thanks, Antonio. You were very diplomatic. One more question for, excuse me, I have to find it. Yes, for Stanley. A question about startups. The numbers are very interesting. Is Miami undermining Silicon Valley's role, or are the characteristics different?
Yeah, interesting question. You know, there was a few years back, maybe a good 7 to 10 years ago, there was a lot of buzz around Miami Beach or Silicon Beach in Miami. And what we realized very quickly is that these things do not happen overnight. You know, I think a couple of things that Antonio mentioned that's really important about a geography, a location, building their business culture. It does take time. There is an important aspect of uniqueness and competitive advantage that Antonio talked about, that I think it's, when you look at Italian goods, for example, you know, Antonio mentioned visibility. And I think that is really important because Miami has a culture of glamour and brand recognition. You know, I always tell people that we have more billionaires in Palm Beach, for example, than anywhere else in the United States. And then you've got a zip code in Fisher Island or I forget, one of the islands near the port. It's the richest zip code in the United States. So people are aware of Italian goods like marble, for example, you know, the furniture for sure, but everything from, you know, leather and some of the, you know, Italian suits, for example, shoes. But the visibility is what's missing. We don't see it. And when you have a lot of people, remember I said there's over 120 million or close to 120 million visiting Miami annually. That's a lot of people. And what do? They want to come and shop. And then they bring it back to their country, you know, using FedEx to bring everything back or whatever it is to bring them back. So visibility is what I don't see. We've got a great, you talked about what are the key industry sectors, and I'll come back to your question about startup. But, you know, aviation is a huge industry in Miami. You know, we have probably the highest concentration of maintenance, repair, and overhaul for the aviation industry. But banking and finance is huge in Miami. I think outside of California, we have the most international banks than anywhere else in the United States, including New York. So we've surpassed New York with the international banking system. And with the banking system, it's so important because a lot of these fintech companies or startups, they want to make sure that they can invest here, right? Which is why we talked about those VCs and angel investors that are here, because every bank you can think of is here in Miami. And so startups feel that this is what they're doing is they're creating their own culture, not necessarily the Silicon Valley culture, but a purely Miami culture. And that's what we're seeing with the tech space. I think that it's really about building an environment for startups to feel that they're accepted, building an environment where investors can come and tap into that new thing, but also big companies like the FedExes, the Marcums of the world, they're also looking at these potential startups and saying, is this a good investment for us? Maybe we should invest in this new technology. So there's a lot of that that's happening here. People don't have to go to Silicon Valley or to Boston for that. We're building it organically here in Miami, and we're seeing it because now Miami, not a Silicon Beach, but a Miami tech scene, a Miami tech ecosystem that's growing exponentially. And you see it in all the studies, all the magazines are showing it. It's real. It's really real. But it took time. It took a little while, and now Miami. Go ahead, Basil.
No, I wanted to, and you talk about this the Silicon Beach. That I think that was closer to 20 years ago.
20 years ago.
but it's absolutely true. Having been in Miami for the last few years, you see a maturation of the city. And that's where I think there's a differentiation between when we looked at Miami as an option 26 years ago, it was Latin America only. And was there a tech scene? There was something that was coming as part of the internet revolution, but it didn't have the underlying infrastructure and base to be able to thrive and flourish. That is really what has shown up in the last 20 years. And I think that incremental process that Stanley's talking about, with the right educational platforms, with the right investments and in an infrastructure over the 20 years, it has really created a forum for this growth. And I think it's here to stay because of the underlying infrastructure pieces that have been put in place over the last few years.
Yeah, and I would say as a result of that, you're going to see a lot of companies that are going to be looking at robotics, artificial intelligence. Right now, Miami has become the capital of the cryptocurrency and blockchain in all of the United States. We have more companies in the crypto and blockchain space than anywhere else in the United States. That could be a good thing. That remains to be seen. But there's a lot of excitement around the blockchain technology and cryptocurrency in Miami, and they put a flag that this is where they're gonna push this whole industry.
And did also miners get to Miami?
They're coming.
Miners, I mean.
Yeah, they're coming. They've been talking a lot to FPNL. FPNL is our energy provider here, and there's a lot of excitement around that. And Miami is welcoming people with open arms. That's one thing about Miami. There was a real estate, one of our real estate brokers said, when you look at Miami on the map, we stick out, and that arm that's sticking out is actually saying, come to Miami. And I like that analogy because that's one thing about Miami, that multicultural, multilingual capacity that we have here is really what makes us receptive. And we'd love to see a higher increase in Italian companies establishing business in Miami for all the reasons that Fiorella talked about and Basil talked about and Antonio talked about.
Thanks, Stanley. I have a last question for Basil. From the perspective of an international shipping giant like FedEx, has the sale of Italian products by e-commerce, perhaps through large marketplaces, grown? And is it growing?
Yeah, so I think when you look at the marketplaces, and I don't have the exact count, but there's approximately 80 major marketplaces around the world. You are seeing an increase in marketplace utilization. I think that's the pattern and the trend we're starting to see. And so there is a growth on there. It creates opportunities. I think what you also see is it may not be one single marketplace that you should only look at. You may want to find ways to connect to multiple marketplaces, but you also have to balance your particular brand. And one of the things that we see as critical is you as a company provide the vision, you provide the brand, and that's really what should be prominent. And so with marketplaces, you definitely, I think it's always a good idea to figure out how to connect to them. And we can help with that, obviously. But then also, how do you ensure that your brand and visibility continues to stay prominently, particularly when you're talking about the value of Italian business, Italian-made goods and products. It's just very critical that you also keep that in mind and you have that balance. So as we look at kind of logistics and distribution and all of that, we tend to see that you need to have the ability to hit those different type of channels, not only marketplaces, but potentially also show your own, you somehow more prominently show your products and have the right infrastructure for that.
Basil. So I would try to draw a conclusion. In a global framework that has made great strides towards recovery, and beyond the concerns related to the emergence of the COVID Omicron variant, as the editor-in-chief of Economist said in his introduction, there seems to be room for growth in the role of Italian SMEs in the US market. It's a matter of knowing the market better and approaching it in the right way. During 2020, in the middle of the COVID pandemic, we have seen that the food sector recorded a positive increase of plus 20%, for example. Why Miami? We talked about that. Miami, like Florida, offers a particularly attractive tax regime, starting with no taxation on individual income and for small and medium-sized companies. Corporate taxation is among the lowest compared to other US states. Therefore, attacking the American market starting from Miami can be the right choice, provided that it is done wisely, following all the steps that have been described by today's guests, and above all, provided that it is not seen as an extemporaneous action, but on the contrary, a structural choice of medium-long term that necessarily foresees the right support and the right presence in local, like Antonio said. For this reason, I believe that there will be other opportunities, I hope, to examine individual aspects of the activities useful to SMEs to successfully enter the American market. Thanks to Antonio Acunzo, Stanley Rigaud, Fiorella Belardi, and Basil Khalil. Thanks to those who followed the webinar. Good afternoon to those who followed us from Italy. It's getting dark here. And good morning to those who are in America. See you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Antonio. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Basil. Thank you, Stanley.
Bye-bye.